lansat la Ateneul Român în cadrul Festivalului Internațional de Teatru, cuprinde piese de teatru în versuri, poeme dramatice, destinate cunoașterii universului, micro-universul uman, dar și macro-universul în care trăim, acest unicos în care trăim. Unicosul e Dumnezeu, unicosul sunt eu. Sonetele profetice ne dezvăluie legătura între microcosmos și între macrocosmos. Sonetele profetice au dezvăluit faptul că în inima noastră sufletul nostru creează un câmp toroidal al fizicalității, iar sufletul omului creează un câmp toroidal al sufletului omului. Aceste două câmpuri interacționează, se armonizează, sunt în sincronie și creează o altă plasmă. 1 plus 1 nu fac 2, fac mai mult. Creează o plasmă mult mai puternică. Acest câmp plasmatic, acest câmp toroidal, prin extinderea câmpurilor, liniilor sale de câmp, ajunge să se contopească cu unicosul, adică multitudinea universurilor, multiversul. Atunci când reușim să ascensionăm prin ridicarea energetică a bătăilor, acestor pulsații ale câmpului toroidal, acest câmp magnetico-gravitațional, gravitațional când e în fizicalitate și magnetic când este vorba de câmpul sufletului, care este cel care dăruiește iubire. Gravitaționalul atrage. Acest câmp toroidal este secretul. Câmpul toroidal, de fapt, este un fractal care se poate comprima și se poate extinde cât universul și comprima în tot atâția fractali câte ființe, câte planete, câte corpuri astrale cerești sunt în această lume a creației. Lume creată de acest câmp al conștiinței, acest câmp al sufletului. Conștiința și sufletul sunt sinonime. Haideți să ascultăm ce ne spune despre puterile noastre.
Table of Contents. Preface. Chapter 1. Infinite Life and Power. Chapter 2. The Overcoming of Life's Difficulties. Chapter 3. Fate or Free Will. Chapter 4. Cause and Effect. Chapter 5. Success. Chapter 6. Health. Chapter 7. The Secret of Abundant Supply. Chapter 8. The Powers and Limitations of the Subconscious Mind. Chapter 9. The Use of the Spiritual or Superconscious Mind. Chapter 10. Character Building and the Overcoming of Habit. Chapter 11. Happiness and Joy. Chapter 12. The Use and Misuse of Mental and Spiritual Powers. Chapter 13. Overcoming Limitations and Awakening Inward Powers. Preface. There is a power lying hidden in man, by the use of which he can rise to higher and better things. There is in man a greater self that transcends the finite self of the senseman, even as the mountain towers above the plain. The object of this little book is to help men and women to bring their inward powers of mind and spirit into expression, wisely and in harmony with universal law, to and to find within themselves that wondrous self, which is their real self, and which, when found, reveals to them that they are literally and truly sons of God and daughters of the Most High. There is no way whereby the discipline of life can be avoided. There is no means by which fate can be tricked, nor cunning device by which the great cosmic plan can be evaded. Each life must meet its own troubles and difficulties. Each soul must pass through its deep waters. Every heart must encounter sorrow and grief. But none need be overwhelmed in the great conflicts of life. For one who has learned the great secret of his identity with the universal life and power dwells in an impregnable city, built upon and into the rock of truth, against which the storms of life beat in vain. While this little work does not offer any vain promises of an easy life, for, if this were possible, it would be the greatest of all disasters, but rather endeavors to show how to become so strong that life looks almost easy by comparison. The life where fate does not change or become easier, but the individual alters and becomes stronger. Yet, it does show the reader how to avoid making his life more difficult than it need be. Most people's lives would be less filled with trouble and suffering if they took life in the right spirit and acted in harmony with universal law. It is hoped that this little book may help many to come into harmony with life's law and purpose, and thus avoid much needless suffering. To find a greater self within, which discovery brings with it a realization of absolute security. To bring into expression and wisely use their inner spiritual and mental forces, and thus enter a life of overcoming and almost boundless power. Chapter 1. Infinite Life and Power. Man possesses, did he but know it, illimitable power. This power is of the Spirit. Therefore, it is unconquerable. It is not the power of the ordinary life, or finite will, or human mind. It transcends these, because, being spiritual, it is of a higher order than either physical or even mental. This power lies dormant and is hidden within man until he is sufficiently evolved and unfolded to be entrusted with its use. Thought is a spiritual power of tremendous potency, but this is not the power of which we speak. By thought, man can either raise himself up and connect himself with the powerhouse of the universe, or cut himself off entirely from the divine inflow. His thought is his greatest weapon because, by it, he can either draw on the infinite or sever himself, in consciousness, but not in reality, from his divine source. Through the divine spark within him, which is really his real self, man is connected with the infinite. Divine life and power are his, if he realizes that they are his. So long as he is ignorant of his oneness with the divine source of all life, he is incapable of appropriating the power that is really his. If, however, he enters into this inner knowledge, he finds himself the possessor of infinite power and unlimited resources. This power, then, is God's. Yet it is also man's, but it is not revealed to him until he is fit to be entrusted with it. It is only when man realizes his oneness with his divine source that he becomes filled with its power. Many teachers and initiates lament the fact that certain secrets are being spread broadcast today. Secrets that, in the past, were kept closely guarded. They fear that unillumined and unevolved people may make destructive use of spiritual power. This, to the writer, appears to be improbable. It is true that strong personalities, who have a great belief in their own power to achieve and succeed, draw unconsciously on hidden powers, and thus are able to raise themselves high above their fellows. The use, however, that they can make of spiritual power for base purposes is limited, and is not to be feared. There are others, of course, who are misusing their powers. These are black magicians, and while they may do a certain amount of harm, they become reduced, ultimately, to beggary and impotence. There are also others, who spend the whole of their spare time searching for knowledge of this very subject. They read every occult book they can lay hands on, but they never find that for which they seek. There are spiritual powers and influences that withhold the eyes of the seekers from seeing until they are ready for the revelation. When man, in his search for truth, has given up all selfish striving after unworthy things, and has ceased to use his self-will in conflict with the greater will of the whole, he is ready for the revelation of his oneness with the infinite. Yielding implicitly to the will of the whole may seem, to the unillumined, yet it is the entrance to a life of almost boundless power. Man is not separate from his divine source, and never has been. He is, in reality, one with the infinite. The separation which he feels and experiences is mental, and is due to his blindness and unbelief. Man can never be separated from spirit, for he himself is spirit. He is an integral part of one complete whole. He lives and moves, and has his being in God. Universal, omnipresent spirit, and God or spirit dwells in him. The majority of people are unaware of this intimate relationship with the divine. And, because they are unaware, or because they refuse to believe it, they are, in one sense, separated from the inner life of God. Yet, this separation is only in their thoughts and beliefs, and not in reality. Man is not separated and never can be. Yet, so long as he believes that he is separate and alone, he will be as weak and helpless as though he actually were. As soon as man realizes the truth of his relationship to the infinite, he passes from weakness to power, from death unto life. One moment he is in the desert, afar off, weak, separate, and alone. The next, he realizes that he is nothing less than a son of God, with all a son's privileges and powers. He realizes, in a flash, that he is one with his divine source, and that he can never be separated. He awakens also to the fact that all the power of the infinite is his to draw upon, that he can never really fail, that he is marching on to victory. It will thus be seen how great is the power of man's thought. While thought is not the power of the spirit, it is the power by which man either connects himself up with the infinite power, opening himself to the divine inflow, or cuts himself off, and separates himself from his spiritual source. Thus, in a sense, man is what he thinks he is. If he thinks he is separate from God, and cut off from his power, then it is as though this were really the case. And he is just as impotent and miserable, as though he actually existed apart from God. On the other hand, if he thinks and believes that he is one with the infinite, he finds that it is gloriously true, and that he is really a son of God. If he believes and thinks that he is a mere material being, then he lives the limited life of a material being, and is never able to rise above it. But if, on the contrary, he thinks and believes that he is a spiritual being, then he finds that he possesses all the powers of a spiritual being. Again, if he thinks that his work is difficult, and that he is not equal to his tasks, he finds that really his tasks are difficult and beyond his powers. Yet on the other hand, if he believes his work is easy, or, at any rate, within his powers, he finds that such is the case, and that he can do his work with ease. The power within is infinite, for, by faith in it, man is directly coupled up with the spiritual power of the universe. The divine spark within him connects him to the sacred flame, thus making him potentially a god in the making. A change, then, must take place within man before he can enter into his divine inheritance. He must learn to think after the spirit, i.e., as a spiritual being, instead of after the flesh, i.e., as a material creature. Like the prodigal son, he must come to himself and leave the husks and the swine in the far country, returning to his father's house, where there is bread of life, enough and to spare. Chapter 2. The overcoming of life's difficulties. The true object of life is that man may attain wisdom through experience. This cannot be accomplished by giving in to the difficulties of life, but only by overcoming them. The promises of God are not made to those who fail in life's battle, but to those who overcome. Neither are there any promises that man shall have an easy time and be happy ever afterwards. Yet, it is after this that the majority of people are forever seeking an easy life, a good time, freedom from suffering and care. But, in spite of all their seeking, they can never find that which they desire. There is always a fly in the ointment of their pleasure, something that robs them of true happiness. Or, possibly, combinations of circumstances conspire to upset all their plans. Life is a paradox. The true object of life is not the attainment of happiness. Yet, if we attain the true object of life, we find happiness. Those who are ignorant of life's true purpose, and who seek happiness high and low, year after year, fail to find it. Like a will-o'-the-wisp, it forever eludes them. On the other hand, those who recognize the true object of life, and follow it, attain happiness without seeking for it. In times past, people have made God a convenience. They They have thought they could drift through life, learning none of its discipline. And then, when in trouble, or things were not to their liking, they could pray to God, and have the unpleasant circumstances taken away. The same idea is prevalent today. People have left the old orthodoxy, and look to various cults and isms to get them out of their difficulties. They do not believe now that they can curry special favor with God by prayer. But they firmly believe that they can get what they want from the invisible by demanding it. They think that by this means, they can have their own way after all. By this, they mean having a good time. With no unpleasant experiences, trials, difficulties, adversities. They are, however, merely chasing rainbows. The easy life they seek constantly eludes them simply because there is no such thing. The only life that is easy is the life of the strong soul who has overcome. His life is not easy in reality, but appears relatively so because of his strength. It is impossible to have an easy life. And, if it were possible, then life would be not worth living. For the sole object of life is the building of character and the attainment of wisdom through experience. Life to all of us must always be full of difficulty. And it is to help those who, hitherto, have found life rather too much for them that this book is being written. What the majority are seeking for is an easy life, which they will never find, but precisely the reverse, and for them, I have no message. But to those wise and awakened souls who are seeking for truth, no matter from whence it may come, and who desire to overcome life and its difficulties, instead of weakly giving in to them, this book, it is hoped, will bring a message. At this stage, we cannot go into the subject of why we should meet with disasters and adversity in this life, nor why some people should have, apparently, a smoother life than others. We must therefore be satisfied to know that we have to meet trouble and overcome difficulty, and that it is only by so doing that we can attain wisdom and build up character. The question, then, is not whether we shall meet the trouble and adversity or not, but rather, how we shall meet them. Shall we be victorious or shall we be submerged? Shall we overcome life's difficulties or shall we give in to them? The majority of people are drifters on the sea of life. They are wafted here and blown there. They are also carried hither and thither by every current. It is only the few who realize that they have the power of the infinite within them by which they can rise superior to all their difficulties, overcome their own weaknesses, and, through victorious experience, attain wisdom. At this point, some practical reader may say that attaining wisdom is all very well, but what he wants is practical help. He is perhaps out of work, has sickness in his house, and is in debt. Or, he may be well-to-do, and yet in the deepest distress and misery. To all such, I would say that they possess the power by which they can overcome all their difficulties. And, through overcoming, attain wisdom. A man's success depends, more than anything, upon his faith in the good purpose of life, his faith in the power of the infinite within him, and his ability to overcome every obstacle in his path. The extent of the power that man can bring into his life is the measure of his faith in that power. If his faith in it is small, then his life will be feeble and lacking in achievement. If his faith in the power within him is large, then great will be the power manifesting in his life. The power of the infinite is illimitable and inexhaustible. All that is required is an unquenchable belief and trust in it. The weakest and most timid can make use of this power. There is the same power in the timid and weak as in the brave and strong. The weakness of the former is due to a lack of faith and belief in the infinite power within them. Difficulties and troubles there will be in every life, and sometimes disaster and heartbreak. When the very earth slides from under the feet, yet, by calling upon the power within, it is possible to rise from the ruins of cherished hopes. Stronger and greater through experience. Happiness and true success depend upon how the troubles and difficulties of life are met. Adversity comes to all, but if it is met in the right manner, even failure can be made the stepping stone to success. Trouble comes to all. But, while it makes some people stronger and better in every way, it submerges others so that they never rise again. The trouble is the same, it is how it is met that makes the difference. Those who meet difficulty and adversity, in the feeble strength of their finite minds and false personality, are speedily overwhelmed and broken by the storms of life. But those who realizes his own real spiritual identity, knows that he can never die, that he can never be defeated, that he can never really fail. He may lose his body through the change that is called death, but he, the true man can never die. Neither can he fail, though he be defeated 1,000 times, she must rise again. Only have faith in the spiritual power within you, and you can know all the joys of overcoming and achievement. All things will become yours. Seek first the kingdom within you, your spiritual union with the infinite, and harmony with the divine will and purpose. And all these things shall be added unto you. You will have no need to fear the morrow, for you will know that all provision has already been made. There will be no need to hoard up wealth, for there will be the necessary daily supplies always available. There will be no need to live near a doctor, for God, the infinite life, shall be your health. There will be no need for regret or lamentation, for you shall know that all is well. There will be no fear of future happenings, for you shall realize that the Infinite One makes no mistakes. Chapter 3. Fate or Free Will. Great has been the controversy in the past over the vexed subject of fate versus free will. On the one hand, fatalists claim that man is so closely bound to the wheel of fate. It is impossible for him to live his life in any different way than that which is mapped out for him. He can bring a quantity of first-class evidence in support of his claim, and believes in his theory with all his heart. On the other hand, the advocate of free will believes just as wholeheartedly that man is not bound at all, being as free as air. He, too, can bring plenty of evidence in support of his theory, which confirms him in his belief. Each one of them thinks that the other is wrong, yet they cannot both be wrong. Let us therefore examine the subject for ourselves. For it is an important one, being intimately connected with the subject which this book discusses. First of all, let it be said, they are both wrong in part, and right in part. Man is bound to the wheel, yet, at the same time, he has free will. Let us, therefore, explain this seeming paradox. It is an ancient truth of the inner teaching that man, when he is unevolved and before he is unfolded, is bound to the wheel of fate very closely. The unevolved man follows his desires, thus creating for himself a future from which he cannot escape. When, however, he becomes more evolved and emancipated, he begins to resist following his desires, and strives, instead, to follow higher things. This creates for him a better future, and thus he becomes free in comparison with his former slave state. Man is a slave to fate as long as he is a slave to the desires of the earth plane. He is, however, free to overcome lower things and thus rise to higher. When he does this, he ceases to create a painful future for himself and thus becomes free. There is, therefore, fate which is self-created. It is necessary to acknowledge this before we can proceed further. One who has not had much experience of life, or who has not been a close observer, may deny that there is such a thing. But one who has had great changes in his life, against which he has fought and struggled in vain, knows that there is a purpose working behind the events of life, against which even kings and mighty men are powerless. There come times in man's life when he moves heaven and earth, figuratively speaking, prays until he can pray no more, sacrifices. It may be his money, his health, his prospects, and does everything that is in the power of a human being in a vain attempt to stave off a threatened disaster. But, in spite of all his efforts, in spite of his cries to a pitiless heaven, the relentless march of fate cannot be stayed. It moves forward like a huge juggernaut and crushes his hopes, his dearest idol, his very life itself, or all that then makes his life worth living, and leaves him desolate. If then, you may ask, fate is so pitiless and so powerful, what can be done with it? And where does free will enter into the matter? In reply, it must be admitted at once that it is no use fighting fate. The more man fights it, the more completely he gets broken. There are certain main events in each life which must come to pass. These events One who meets the setbacks, griefs, bereavements, and disasters of life in the right spirit becomes a strong and rich character. He becomes mellowed through experience, strong, stable, a helpful influence to all who meet him. When things go smoothly and life is a merry round, no philosophy or religion seems necessary. And, as for an inward power, what of it? We can do very well without it. So say the thoughtless and inexperienced. But there come times in every life when, not only is a philosophy, and that a very sound one, necessary, but also a power, of which the finite self knows nothing, is needed in order to raise the soul out of the dust and ashes of its despair. It is one thing to try and meet trouble and adversity in the right spirit, and quite another thing to have the power to do so. One who thinks that he has no power within him, but that all the power is in circumstances, can never rise victorious over his troubles, and become a conqueror over life's difficulties. But one who realizes that he possesses a wonderful power that can raise him up, no matter how crushed he may be, can never be a failure in life. No matter what may happen to him, he will play the man and act a noble part. Weather all storms of life, and come out of his trials greatly strengthened. He cannot prevent these influences from coming around his path of life, but he can rise superior to them. He will meet with failures and setbacks, but he will make of these stepping stones to success. He will experience griefs and bereavements, but out of these he will build a finer character and rise to higher things. One, however, who gives into these things, refusing to rise again and reconstruct his life, condemns himself to further suffering, thus making utter shipwreck of his life. Let the despairing take heart again. Believe in the power within you, and you will rise to heights before undreamed of. With this power to help you, you can accomplish the apparently impossible. Appendix to Chapter 3. Our life here is not governed by a capricious being who blows first hot and then cold, or who favors one person and tortures another. The Supreme Being works through laws that are absolutely just and unchanging. Therefore, all disaster and trouble in the life is the effect of certain causes. These causes are our own wrongdoing in the past, which set in motion forces against which the power and wit and wisdom of man are powerless. However, because the fundamental law of the universe is love, it follows that the working of the law of cause and effect is not vindictive. Its object is our highest good, viz., to bring us into union with the divine, or in tune with the infinite. Therefore, by rising up to a higher plane and coming more into harmony and union with the divine, we rob even big fate of something of its power. We cannot oppose it, for by so doing we fight against omnipotence. But we can forestall it by doing willingly, and of our own accord, that very thing which experience comes to teach us. It will be seen then that our future depends entirely upon the way we think and act in this life. Our future lies in our own hands. If we violate the law of love in this life, we create disaster and suffering for the future, which will have to be met in the form of big fate of a painful character someday. Therefore, by right thinking and right doing now, we not only ameliorate conditions in this life, but we also create a future that will be more harmonious and freer than anything we have experienced hitherto. It is also necessary to point out that, even in this life, some of its big disasters are the result of thoughts and actions committed during this present existence. A youth or young man may commit a folly that brings, in after life, a terrible retribution. Or he may do another man a grievous wrong, and years afterwards, someone else does the same wrong to him. It is always an eye for an eye, and a tooth for a tooth on this plane of cause and effect. But the great way shower, by his teaching of the power of love, enables us to rise above these lower things, and live a life of harmony and peace. Chapter 4. Cause and Effect. Man is the cause of the disasters in his life. He reaps through the ages exactly as he sows. Life is perfectly just, and rewards every man according to his works. The fate of the present is the reaping of his sowing in, it may be, a distant past. Therefore, the disasters and sufferings of this life must not be attributed to the interference of a capricious and unreasonable God. For the truth is, they are due to the exact working of a perfectly just law. Fate, once created, is irrevocable. It can neither be fought nor evaded. By fighting against fate, man merely smashes himself to pieces. To do so is equivalent to running his head against a stone cliff. The harder he charges, the greater the damage to his head. But the cliff is unaffected. Fate, although largely self-created, is really the divine purpose of life. Therefore, to resist it is to fight against God. Fate, again, is not punishment in any vindictive sense. It is the drawing together of certain remedial experiences, through which the soul can learn the lessons it has failed to learn in past ages, and thus attain wisdom. The object of fate is the highest good of the individual, although it may entail suffering and painful experiences. Because the disasters in man's life are due to past wrongdoing, it naturally follows that his future depends upon the kind of life that he lives today. If, in the past, he has created for himself a sequence of events and experiences from which it is impossible for him to escape, it is obvious that his future lives depend entirely upon how he lives the present one. It will be seen that if man can learn the lessons of the present life and live in such a way as to cease creating trouble for the future, he is beginning to climb the path of liberation, which is the road all advanced souls have to follow, or, rather, have the privilege of following. By following this path, man ceases to be bound to the wheel of fate. This little work does not teach reincarnation, but its teaching is based on a belief that man, in reality, is a spiritual being, a divine spark from the sacred fire. Spirit, being immortal, has no beginning or end, therefore always lives. This present life is one of countless experiences, each one of which helps to build up character. There is no death, but only changes from one vehicle to another. There is no beginning or end or time in reality. These are mere limitations of the human mind. It is impossible for man to die. He can only leave his body. He cannot kill himself, try how he will. He can only force himself out of his body. Man must always go on, whether he likes it or not. He proceeds through the ages, reaping exactly as he sows. We have already seen that man cannot avoid or fight successfully against fate, but that he can become free from the wheel of fate by living a life in harmony with divine law. At this point, it is necessary to point out that most of man's troubles are not caused by fate at all, but are due to his fighting against or trying to resist the great plan. If the experiences of life are resisted, or an attempt is made to evade its discipline, troubles and difficulties will repeat, becoming more painful and insistent, until their lesson is learnt and the life changed accordingly. Therefore, man has it in his power greatly to improve his present life, as well as to create a far better future, simply by living his life today in harmony with divine law. Further, it is necessary to point out that all thought and action have an immediate as well as a far-reaching effect. It is true that the full effect of life here is not reaped until after our little course on this plane has been run. But great differences are effected in the present life nevertheless. The way a youth makes use of, or throws away his opportunities, either makes or mars, to a very large extent, his adult career. Opportunities, once allowed to pass, can never be recalled. Sins committed and wrongs done to our fellow men have an unpleasant habit of repeating themselves in a reversed way later in life. For instance, a man may get on in life, and, in his selfish climb, may trample on one weaker than himself, ruining him and driving him to despair. Years afterwards, he will probably be treated in exactly the same way by someone stronger and more favorably situated than himself. Therefore, there is an immediate sowing and reaping that finds fruition in this life. By immediate is meant within the compass of this life. The reaping may be delayed 10 or 20 years, but in the writer's experience, it not infrequently comes. Whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also his ideals, his attitude towards life must all become transformed. When this change has been effected, he not only begins to repair his present life, but he creates a fairer and nobler life for the future. Man, then, has to change. His desires and aspirations, instead of being directed towards hate and evil, must be transformed to love and good. Instead of wallowing in lust and selfishness, he must lift himself to higher and better things. How can this be done? It cannot be accomplished by the finite man at all, but it can be achieved by the infinite power within. It is only when man realizes his oneness with the infinite and believes that omnipotent power is at his disposal that the spiritual power within becomes available. So long as man has doubts and fears or disbeliefs, this special power is not available. It is his, but his state of heart and mind prevents him from either realizing the presence of the power or making use of it. Before the machinery of a workshop can run, it must be connected up with the engine room. In the same way, man, before he can live the new life, must become one with the infinite life and power. Entering this new life of power does not take away life's experiences, its trials, troubles, and adversities. But the change within does prevent the creation of unnecessary troubles and suffering. Also, even a so-called unkind fate loses much of its power to wound, for the higher man rises into union with God and infinite love, the less power it has in his life. It still operates, but it fails to wound so deeply. For man, seeing with illumined eyes, knows that it is good that has come to bless, and not evil that has come to slay. Painful fate loses its power to hurt when man ceases to resist it, and meets it with open arms, seeking to learn the lessons that it has to teach. Chapter 5. Success. What is meant here by success is the achievement of something worthwhile that shall make the world better and richer, and add something to the common good. Our sphere in life may be very humble, but if we overcome our own weaknesses, help others along life's pathway, and do our daily work better than we need, our life cannot be other than successful. If
Deci am ascultat și alte păreri. Atunci când medităm, când ne liniștim creierul acesta al gândirii logice și rămânem doar cu creierul limbic, acesta ne ajută să modificăm starea de conștiință, intrăm în altă stare de conștiință și ne identificăm cu infinitul, conștiința infinită, care de fapt este esența noastră. Realitatea este o iluzie, timpul și spațiul sunt iluzii. Ceea ce există cu adevărat este această ființă cosmică, această ființă divină, care este inteligentă, care este un câmp care emană energie, un câmp toroidal. Se mai numește și teoria orange, adică teoria portocalei. Vedeți aici că am un toroid, un câmp toroidal, da? Iar omul este în centru, pentru că omul are ascuns în interiorul inimii un astfel de câmp toroidal puternic, dar și în interiorul cutiei craniene este un alt câmp și mai puternic, câmpul sufletului omului. Ambele, dacă sunt în coerență, acest câmp al sufletului omului îl îmbracă pe cel al sufletului fizicalității și formează un câmp, un alt câmp, câmpul universului, câmpul unicosului. Acest câmp al unicosului este chiar divinitatea, este Dumnezeu. Din acest câmp se creează diferite plasme, Iar aceste plasme interacționează între ele și creează la infinit diferite universuri, alte plasme, micro-universuri, micro-universuri umane sau de altă natură, ființe, plante, regnul animal, regnul vegetal, regnul mineral. Este expresia acestei conștiințe pure, acestui câmp primordial, câmpul conștiinței, câmpul sufletului. Acesta este mesajul dansului creației și spun dans pentru că totul este în mișcare, e ca un dans și această mișcare nu este haotică, este una ritmică care respectă anumite legi ale Universului, anumite legi cosmice, dar și legi fizice atunci când e vorba despre realitatea fizică. În altă viață, v-am spus, am fost Newton și Newton a reușit să codifice realitatea fizică prin anumite legi, dar a lucrat în același timp și în domeniul fizicii spiritului, alchimiei spiritului, reușind, dar ne lăsând acest mesaj umanității. El și-a ars toate manuscrisele pentru a ne lăsa pe noi să creștem spiritual, pentru a putea să înțelegem acest mesaj. Acum, umanitatea poate înțelege acest mesaj, însă paradigma care predomină este paradigma materialistă, științifico-materialistă. Vă doresc să aveți pace în suflet pentru a putea radia pace și în univers, adică a vă extinde liniile de câmp până când deveniți întregul univers și apoi puteți să comprimați din nou liniile de câmp, să deveniți un fractal mai mic și mai mic, pentru că universul este o hologramă fractalică plus viață, dată de Duhul Sfânt, dată de energia prana, chi, chi, indiferent cum îi spunem, organică, vriti. Mulțumesc! La revedere!